in many ways, running a vinyl record business is no different than any other small business. It's a ton of work. You're dealing with inventory and shipping and fulfillment and customer service and all those things that go along with any other small business. But coming from the background of being a record collector, there's obviously a ton of perks that go along with the job. That's what we will talk about in this episode of Talking About Records. My name is G.I. Sanders from NTX Vinyl, a small chain of independent shops in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. If you're not local, but you are in the U.S., you can shop online at ntxvinyl.com. And of course, would love it if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us across social media, Facebook, Instagram, and now TikTok as well. So let's talk about the perks of being the owner of a record shop or a record business or whatever you want to call it. This is a fun topic, and it's one that honestly I get asked about a lot. I say, what's the coolest part of owning a record shop, or what do you enjoy the most, right? And so I kind of boiled it down into three main talking points. First and foremost, the elephant in the room, right? The coolest part, the best part, the biggest part of owning a record business is the records. I get asked all the time, how do you decide what to keep? You know, when you go acquire a big pre-owned collection, or even when you get new inventory in, how do you decide what to keep? So it's a struggle, I'm not gonna lie. But as you get down the path, you know, and the business grows and kind of formalizes into something real, which is kind of where I'm at with NTX Vinyl, it becomes a lot easier because you're less attached to the records. And let's be honest, I've got a ton of records already. I don't need that many more. My want list, I guess you could say, is much, much smaller these days than it used to be. And most of the records I'm really after are really unique pressings or rare types of albums that you just don't find in collections all that often. So, but it is still the biggest perk because when I go get to look at a collection, you know, it's a treasure hunt. It still is to this day. I've been doing it for years. I've been doing this, probably digging big collections for, I don't know, 6, 7 years, and the last 3 or 4 specifically for NTX Vinyl as a business. And it's still just as fun. You know, just a couple days ago, I looked at, you know, a collection of like 2,000 records, and just digging through those to find the diamond in the rough. You know, it's an incredible experience to be able to do that. So dealing with the records, whether it be pre-owned or even like the new inventory that comes in on a weekly or even bi-weekly basis at this point, getting to unbox all the new releases and stuff that people have ordered and getting to have a first look at those records is really, really cool. And I still appreciate it so much, just getting to handle all that. Like, I think about what so many other people do for jobs and what I've done my entire life for jobs. And you don't get to usually work with something that you really cherish and love. And so I don't take that for granted. So I think the records are obviously the biggest part about it because I do have a love and I'm attracted to them so much because I've been dealing with them the whole lives, collecting them my whole lives, to now being able to kind of do that at scale. Is a really, really big perk. And again, I don't take it for granted. And you know, they're heavy, it's hard. You're dealing with a lot of manual labor when it comes to records. So that's kind of the downside of dealing with a lot of inventory. But again, do I keep a ton of records these days? I really don't. Like, of most of the collections that I buy, I might keep a couple at most. If I go back a few years when I was really starting to get into this, I probably kept a lot more just because, again, my collection was still growing. But yeah, it's a decision you got to make with each time. But less and less these days, so I end up keeping that many records out of a big collection. So the records are undoubtedly the biggest perk that I think that kind of goes without saying. The second perk is the people. I have met so many good people, the people and the community. People who are now really good friends, people who now work with me that I never would have been connected with until I started NTX Vinyl. That's the honest truth. Like, there are so many people now who I talk with on a daily basis, you know, physically or obviously online or whatever it be, texting, that I never would have had relationships with if it wasn't for this business. And I think that's probably true for just about any record store owner. Again, I'm not physically at my shops, but for those who are physically at their shops, I'm sure they're connected with a whole lot of their customers who end up making friends with them and having relationships outside of the store, if you will. So I think the people in the community can't really be spoken about enough, because without that, nothing else really happens. It doesn't matter how many records I have if there's not people there to consume them, if there's not a community there to help those records sell and flourish and survive, like, then it doesn't happen. And like I mentioned, now the people who are involved with NTX Vinyl, top to bottom, other than myself, are all good friends and family who came from the fact that I started this. I met them through it, and now they're engaged and a part of it with me, and that's what makes it so much fun. Like, if I had to do this all on my own, A, it would never work, and B, I would be bored out of my mind. So I think having the right group of people around you, again, whether that's coworkers, whether that's friends, that's family, and just the community at large, I think being engaged with that is absolutely critical for a business to survive, and for you to keep your sanity, for me to keep my sanity as a business owner. I think I absolutely have to have that connection and kind of interaction with other people who I enjoy being around. That's absolutely critical. The number 3 perk, and I think this is kind of brings those first two together, and that is the connection. And what I mean by that is the connection to the music. Connecting the records to the people, I think, is really, really powerful. And I'll explain to you what I mean. I was a musician, I'd like to say, in a former life. So in my early 20s, I was in a rock band. I got to tour the country. I was signed to a major label. I did all those things. So I've played on stage, recorded music, written albums. So I know what it feels like for people to say, oh my God, your songs mean so much to me. The music that you've played tonight, or, on the album, really, really resonates with me, and it's gotten me through tough times. Like, you hear it all the time, like people, musicians talk about that kind of relationship with the fans in regards to how much passion there is for that music. So I get that from being on stage. Obviously, I understand that point of view because I've been there. I never really imagined when I started a record business that some semblance of that would be there in this environment. And what I mean by that is, when I sell a record to somebody, a lot of times they tell me, thank you so much. I've been looking for this. I'm so excited to have this. I'm excited to have it in my collection. And there's a validation there and an appreciation there that makes me feel like, man, that's pretty cool. Like, I was the delivery agent, or I was the conduit to delivering that music, which is really incredible. Obviously, I didn't write that music. I'm just kind of facilitating the sale of that record, whether it's online or in a shop or whatever it may be. But the fact is, without me, maybe they could have found it elsewhere. Obviously, they could go to another record shop, but maybe not. Either way, they came to me, and I was responsible for making sure it got in their hands and ended up on their turntable so they can enjoy it. That connection that they have to the music, and the fact that I had a small part in it just to be able to deliver that album to them, is really, really cool. I remember the first time I kind of realized this, it was back early when I started NTX Vinyl a couple years ago, and we had done a big pre-order for a new reissue that was coming out, and it hadn't been reissued in a while, and I was really excited. I actually didn't have it in my collection, so I was able to get a copy of it. And I remember, I think we pre-ordered, 20, 30 customers had pre-ordered it for us, which was cool. So I had this whole crate of pre-orders, and I remember flipping through and looking at everyone's names. And I remember this particular album was so important to me because, again, I didn't have it either. And I flipped through and looked at all these people. I was like, man, they're going to be just as excited as I am to own this album now. And I'm the one who's actually making it happen. On some level, not on the stage level, not on the, being behind the music as far as writing and recording, all that, but on the retail level, which, again, I never expected, I never saw coming. And so to this day, when people pick up albums that they delivered, or I meet them in my shops and they're buying records, or they buy them from me online and they tell me thank you, like, I really take that personally, and I take it to heart, because, again, it's like I've been in your shoes. I've been in my customer's shoes, because I was a collector for so many years, and I still am a collector. So I don't I don't undervalue that relationship between the music and the customer and now the record shop owner, because it is something that's kind of sacred. And again, it's hopefully one of the reasons why record stores stay around forever, because there's nothing else like that in regards to how you're going to facilitate acquiring music. You know, it's so different than scrolling your phone and just adding an album to a library, if you will, versus going online and shopping for something, or knowing who you're buying it from, or going into a real shop and meeting who you're buying it from. That's obviously part of the vinyl experience, and part of why there is a community around this that exists. And it's because of that experience that I think is why it's flourishing in so many ways. So those are just a couple of the perks. Again, if I'm going to think about the kind of the biggest advantages, if you will, or the biggest bright spots of owning a vinyl record business, you know, the records themselves and the people in the community and that connection that kind of brings it all together. Hugely important for me, and I know that NTX Vinyl wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for those things, because those are the things that you focus on, not the you know, shipping, and not the fulfillment, and not the inventory, and not you know, the customer service and all the kind of grunt work, if you will, that goes along, which we deal with on a daily and hourly basis at this point. But the positives far outweigh the negatives, and it's still just an amazing business to be able to be in. So that's a little bit about owning the record store from my point of view. Appreciate you listening. As always, we will be back again soon with another episode of Talking About Records. We'll pop up some more content here. Stick around the channel, and we'll see you guys again next time.